Israel's 11th Prime Minister Ariel Sharon is laid to rest at the age of 85 after suffering a brain hemorrhage which led to a coma for the last 7 years. As the world reacts to Sharon's passing and his controversial legacy as a warrior, some would call a legend in Israeli history, we spoke to an expert on international politics to discuss Sharon's military and political career. Why was Prime Minister Ariel Sharon so controversial in the eyes of many?
Sharon was controversial in many of his actions, and I'll give you a few examples. The First Lebanon War in 1982, where the entrance was very heroic, strategically well planned. The continuation, however, was very controversial because, as we know, Israel was stuck there for 16 years. Sharon was a hero in the 1973 war. On the other hand, if we look at other actions, for instance, the Hitler fight in 1956, where he was ordered not to do a certain action, and he did, and many soldiers were killed. So even as a warrior, he was controversial. As a political figure, we see a person that built the Likud, and then destroyed it in 2005 and built an alternative, the Kadima Party. All these actions, in the total, they were controversial.
Was Sharon a leader?
If I can summarize him, I would say that he was a person that always tried to build something that he wanted, and he did not consider other people. Maybe this is the character of a leader, and definitely he was a leader, but again, he was a controversial leader.
What would you say was one of Sharon's greatest moments?
When he was in politics, definitely the election in 2001, when he defeated Barak, finally made it to be Prime Minister, was one of his greatest moments. They always said those who didn't want him as Chief of Staff got him as Minister of Defense, and those who didn't want him as Minister of Defense finally had to accept him as a Prime Minister.
What was one of his poorest moments?
Poorest moment was a few months after the beginning of the Lebanon War, when he was forced to resign as Minister of Defense because of certain actions which were not caused by him. I mean, Sabra and Shatila massacres were done by Lebanese, Christian Lebanese, and Israel was blamed, but he had to take the guilt, the blame, and he had to resign.
Do you think there would be a Palestinian state right now if Sharon was still Prime Minister?
He never believed in the Palestinians. He never believed that there can be some agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. He thought that the Palestinian problem should be resolved in another way. He never believed that there can be some compromise between the national aspirations of the Jewish people and the aspirations of the Palestinians.
Professor Sander, you're an expert on international politics. How was Prime Minister Sharon perceived in the eyes of the international community? Sharon,
until he became Prime Minister and showed that he's ready for compromises, was not seen as a legitimate leader by the international community. Once he became Prime Minister, and he showed that he's ready for compromise, was more accepted by the international community. Definitely, U.S. President Bush liked him. He was very well accepted in Washington. If you include the Arabs, he was never seen there positively among the Arabs, and you can see it in their reactions today. I mean, they are celebrating that he passed away.
In the eyes of the Israelis, Prime Minister Sharon was?
I would say that he was probably a person that Israeli history will not be able to ignore. He definitely made a mark. He definitely will be considered one of the more influential prime ministers. He is not going to come close to Ben-Gurion, but at the second level, he definitely will be there.
In addition to his role as Prime Minister, Ariel Sharon served Israel as Defense Minister, as Housing Minister, as Infrastructure Minister, and as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Though controversial, he definitely contributed to the Jewish state as a warrior, a general, and a politician. For JN1, I'm Sivan Raviv, Israel.